Good evening. I'm Pastor Vernon Shazier, Senior Pastor, River Life Fellowship Church. Welcome to Man to Man. It's once again is my pleasure and joy to have with me Brother George Knox to my right, your left, and my big brother Maurice Shazier to your right, my left. If you're viewing for the first time, we welcome you. Just type in first time so we can give you a warm river welcome. Are y'all brothers ready for this new year?
Ready, ready.
Okay. I am excited, and this topic tonight has me filled with mixed emotions, and we'll see why as we jump into our topic. It is a very deep and gripping topic. As I read this chapter multiple times, there were moments where I had flashbacks, moments where I experienced the revisitation of old pains that I thought I had got past. And so we're going to jump into it. Again, if you're plugging in and this is your first time watching an episode of Man to Man, here's what Man to Man is all about. All over America, as men, we meet in barbershops, we meet in cigar lounges, we meet in our own man caves, we meet in sports bars, and we frequently engage in passionate discussions about topics. Sometimes serious and heated debates arise. Most of the times, these topics that we're arguing and debating about with such conviction and passion are centered around entertainment and sports. Well, Man to Man is about us creating a similar context, but having real, honest, unchased, uncut conversations about issues that really impact us as men, about wrestling with the vices that hinder us and prevent us from being all that we can be. And the goal and objective of Men to Men is that an outcome of these conversations will move us and lead us to a place where we become better men, better husbands, better fathers. And so that is the purpose of Man to Man, and we're going to jump right into it. I hope George and Maurice are ready, because this topic tonight is one that I'm sure every man will be able to relate to some degree. If you have not yet purchased this book, I recommend you purchase this book that we've been going through. It's called Men's Secret War by Patrick Means. Tonight, we're going to talk about the elusive father blessing, manhood without models, the elusive father blessing. That very word elusive carries the connotation of unable to capture, unable to find, something that you cannot grasp or grab hold to. It's elusive. You want it, you desire it, you're chasing it, you're pursuing it, you're looking for it, hunting for it. But for a multitude of reasons, you cannot capture it. Let me read a few excerpts, and then we're going to engage into some uncut, real man dialogue. Mean says that there is a desperate desire to connect with our fathers, and that this ache, this pain never quits and it never goes away. He says, in fatherless America, and he's quoting sociologist David Blankenhorn, missing father syndrome is getting worse. Tonight, about 40% of American children will go to bed in homes in which their fathers do not live before they reach the age of 18. More than one half of our nation's children are likely to spend at least a significant portion of their childhood living apart from their father. Never before in this country has so many children grown up without knowing what it means to have a father. He says this here, he says, these under-fathered men inevitably drag a wounded masculinity into their relationships with their wives and with all other women. And then he says this here, sons need their father. They need two things. He says there are two things we need as men: a sense that we are beloved and that their fathers are well pleased with who they have become as men. Two things we need as men: a sense that we are beloved from our Father, and a sense that our Father is pleased with who we've become as men. All right, let's get it started, Maurice and George. This whole idea of elusiveness of fatherhood, the desire to have that father figure in your life that gives you that feeling of beloved and that approval that I'm proud, I'm pleased with who you have grown and matured to as a man. We want that. He says we need it, but for so many men, it's elusive. We cannot capture it, even though we're chasing it. Who wants to go first? What are your thoughts, George?
Well, one of the reasons that I've discovered that it was so hard to capture was because it was running from me. And I came into the world with an expectation. And when I tried to live out what I expected from my father, and it wasn't there, I started to blame him for being elusive. And so I started to see my father as a kind of emotional threat. And there's a third party, because mama has an awful lot to do with that. And when you look at the relationship between son and father and son and mother, there's a kind of vying for attention because mother gives you all the approval and support that you need. Father may not even like that because before you came along, father had that much more of mother's attention. And so I came to a position of needing to fight for my position, which made my father that much more defensive about holding on to his position. So this power contest for me started at a very early age. And what my father discovered and what all of us will start to share is he has to protect his turf between us, and he has to assert his authority over us. And after a while, we discover that we can't win. We can't win that contest.
But you said something that just made something in my spirit jump. You say the Father that we desire, the affirmation that we desire, what means is we long for this sense to feel we belong by our Father, this sense of approval by our Father. You see, it's running from us. I think that is, that is a great picturistic word to describe the state of so many men in America, so many homes in America, and what so many children are dealing with, even us, even as we are still in our adult age, because again, he makes a powerful point that when we mature and we age into adults, that need, and I agree with means, it's not a want, it's a need that every boy has to feel loved by his father, to feel accepted, to have his father's approval. And you said, it's running from us. It's running from us. I mean, I just have a picture. For me, I got a picture of fathers running from their male children, but their children is chasing them, longing for them, but they're running. I mean, maybe that's what he means when he says our homes are empty. So many homes are bare of fathers there, but the sons are there, and they need that sense of belonging. They need that affirmation, but the father is on the run. I mean, that's just the picture you painted there. Fathers on the run, and I hope our audience can see that, and I'm pretty sure there are many men who are watching and viewing and listening to this conversation can relate to that. You wanting a relationship with your father, you wanting your father's affirmation, but he's on the run. Wow. You have any thoughts about that elusiveness, Maurice?
Well, for me, fellas, I was raised by my great-grandfather until I was 7 when my great-grandmother passed away. At that point, when I moved in with my mother and my siblings, my mother's husband, he became the father figure in our lives. But my great-grandfather set the greatest illustration for me of what a man is, because he's the one that molded and taught me, who God was, cleanliness. I watched this man go to work, as a longshoreman every day. And then my real father was more of a street guy, so I really didn't, I wanted to, I was too young to really know that I needed him. But then when I began to deal with my stepfather, and then it picked up in terms of work ethic, but then in terms of the type of father that we desire to have, a man that we can sit down, talk with, come to our games, take us this place, that place, where they felt that it seemed to me that we had such a strong mother that she filled that gap so powerfully that, most children seems to want to go to mom and ask for things versus dad anyway, because you think you can get away with more with mom than you can dad, and that was the case. But in terms of where that father figure was concerned, the man that raised us was more of a provider. He was more of a guy that was a disciplinary guy. So that elusiveness, it wasn't really a desire in my heart to chase it, because there was nothing that I missed. My mom gave us more of what we needed than he did. But then I always, in the back of my heart, in the back of my mind, wanted to make both him and my real dad proud of me, and so when I began to play sports, drums in the church, whatever things I began to engage in my life, I would love to have had their approval, but honestly speaking, if it didn't come, Mama filled the gap and giving us the confidence. She give us that push. She made us know that man or no man, you know, you gonna be somebody and you gonna do this, that, and the other. Else, she'll run into you like a full-grown man, you know.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I shared with y'all before we even started this conversation. Reading this chapter was a struggle for me, a great struggle, because yes, my mother did a great job at raising us, giving us a good example, good foundation, a good model, but this chapter resonated with me tremendously because to this day, I still wrestle with that. I still struggle with that. I'm so grateful that I had a mother that was at the basketball games, football games, baseball, all of those. But I've always had a desire to have a serious, deep, loving, intimate relationship with my father that I never had. And when Means in his book talks about that elusiveness that you cannot catch, that father that George described as on the run, I can relate to it because I feel that there is a hole in my heart. When I read those words on the pages, he says, the desire and pain to connect with your father never goes away, and it leaves a hole in your heart. I'm 50 plus years old. And when I read those words, I put my hand on my chest because there is a hole still in my heart. Now, I think the hole has shrunken. It's not as big as it was 30 years ago, but there's a hole in my heart, and I believe many men can say what you say, Maurice. My mother was there. She supported me. But even in the midst of receiving mother's support, I just believe in it, in so many boys, so many males. We want a father figure, a man in our life that gives us a sense that we are loved by a father and that we have a father that is pleased. We want to hear those words of affirmations. We want to feel that we've done well and our father is proud of us. And I did not even, again, this chapter just has had me messed up for the last couple of days. I did not even realize how big the hole was, Georgia Maurice, until I think I was about 30 years old. I didn't. I think, you know, I just was moving through life, trying to find manhood and define it to the best I can, grabbing definitions of what it means to be a man from here and there. I got some from playing sports. I got some from the military. I got some from working down at the port at the Longshore, all of this. But it never filled that hole. And I never forget the moment. Again, reading this chapter just brought back so many memories, so many experiences. At the age of 30, it was after Sunday church service, and I had did something for Dr. Glover, my spiritual father, And I tapped on his office door, and I said, Dr. Glover, I'm gone, man. I see you later. And he said, thank you. I love you. And I just walked out to the building, went and sat in my car. When I sat in my car, for 10 minutes I cried uncontrollable. For the first time, it dawned on me, it hit me, it landed on me like a ton of bricks. That was the first time that someone other than my brother, a father figure, had said, I love you. And that's when I realized that there was a hole there that I had not dealt with. And I can relate when Mean says we're in America where fathers are missing. And I can't, George. You just put that image in my head. All I see now is I see young boys desiring for this relationship with their father, and I see fathers running away from them. I see young boys with tears. I see young boys at home. I see young boys struggling. I see young boys trying to find and discover what it means to be a man, and the fathers are on the run, and they're running. The problem is they're running the wrong way, George and Maurice.
Well, a part of, I think, that picture is also to come, I go back to the word competition. The father is the idol. I mean, this is our God. This is the little boy's God. And therefore, it becomes a weapon. So I'm showing my need. And the way he keeps me under control is to keep me from benefiting from his contribution to fill in my need, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So if I need affection, reinforcement, and support, the way he keeps me in line is to either withhold it or threaten to withhold it. And the other thing is, and this, I think this is like the second powerful thing that affected me, fathers go through stuff too that we don't know about. And they're that part of that running is not running away from you, but escaping their own sense of defeated masculinity. Because they got to.
So you keep painting more pictures. So now you just threw something else in that picture. So what you just said, basically, George, we have boys with a hole in their heart who wants acceptance from their father, validation from their father. The father is on the run, but the father is on the run because he has a hole in his heart because he never got the validation and the sense of beloved and belonging from his father. And so we have a generation, really a multi-generational problem happening and taking place. My father is on the run, and he's elusive from me, but he's elusive from me because his father is elusive from him, and his father is elusive from him because his father, oh my goodness, do you see this pattern? And why, now you understand why men are in this place that we are today, unable to really be the men and the husband and the fathers that our families need, our communities need, because we have generations of young men who are dealing with they're dealing with this on a twofold level. On one level, I'm experiencing an elusive father, and then on another level, I'm behaving as an elusive father. Wow. Wow. Let me ask y'all this whole idea of needing your father's validation, a father's validation, has that presented a struggle for you, a challenge for you? And let's talk about that whole idea of needing that validation. How has that impacted you? You know, you want to go first, Reese, on that?
Yeah, let me just back up a little bit and then I'll come forth to that, V. So, you know, you and I were raised in the same house. I'm 54 years old. We went through the same struggles. We went through the same thing with, you know, the whole dad thing. And at 54, this is the first time I ever knew that it affected you like that. I never knew that this whole daddy thing affected you like that, because my mama always told us that our dad, mama died when he was like 12, and he ran away and went to Delaware picking fruit and on farms. So this dude at 12 years old, he out there on his own. Then he cut into my mom in his 20s. This dude don't know nothing about being a father. So now we got an expectation that dude finna be a good father to us when he ain't. He's incapable of being that to us, but we didn't understand it at the time. But then by me being so swift on my feet and just kind of like being very observative about things, once I realized that it was just incapable, he was incapable of being what we consider the type of father that you see, Leave It to Beaver type, you know, on the father that come home and hug his kids. And my real father, I mean, once I knew that dude was just a street dude. Once I understood that neither one of them cats can be what I needed, then you turn to the homies. So once you get your homies validation, once your homeboys accept you in and y'all rolling together and you that dude with them, for me now, it affects everybody differently. For me, I didn't need Dave validation no more, because I felt like I was accepted in a realm where I was being validated through
Stop
sports.
right there. Stop right there. You just touched on something. We got to talk about.
Yeah.
So when we do not, what you said, you did not get the validation from daddy.
Right.
So you went and sought after it and got it somewhere else.
Yes.
I stop you because, again, I think that is a picture, again, of the state of young men and grown men, just males, period. We can't get away from this truth that in us there is a need, it is necessary to be validated by a father, by a male. And when we do not receive it, subconsciously we go search after it. You got it, and I got it too from the guys on the football team. I got it from, you know, my guys in the military. I mean, my closest friends, you know, they're like brothers, or guys who I played sports with, guys I was in the military with, because these are guys who you fought with and you went to battle with. And so many of our young males today, from 12 to 60, are getting the validation that they did not get from their father, from other places. And if we be honest, and that's what this show is about, honest, some of the places we're getting our validations from are not healthy places. I mean, I got validation. We got validation from the guys on the football team. I got validation in the military, but what they taught me and the definition that they gave me about manhood, it was reduced to profit and pleasure.
But guess what, George? The homies seem to take interest and care more about me than these dudes that call my dad seem to ever have cared about. So we hanging out with our dudes, and as long as they got our back and we doing what we do, I really never even, it didn't affect me like, man, Dad, you ain't come to my game tonight, man. I told y'all I was playing tonight and all like that, because, you know, if we accolade and we make progress in their eyes, then they want to be our homeboy. And now we feel a feel of acceptance. And so that's
Well, let me ask you this here. Is it not true that what's really happening and what really happened with so many of us that was on that football team or that basketball team or that track team was that we was just a bunch of dudes all giving each other validations
Amen.
that we did not receive or were not getting from a father figure. And we had holes in our heart that was masked. Yes. And the definitions that we were receiving and the validation that we were receiving from each other, it made us feel good because we had somebody giving us some validations.
Yes.
But I would argue that it didn't do nothing with the whole.
Yes.
It caused you not to have to pay attention to the whole, but that don't mean the whole went away.
It's a difference between covering a hole and filling a hole.
Yeah, right. and I'll share a story. You know, what's really funny is there are different versions. Y'all mentioned it. For example, my natural father was a good and decent guy. His mother, both his parents were in the school system. My father was a really, really smart guy. But he left me and my mother to go to law school. We grew up in Jacksonville. The only closest law school that he could attend, because he was black, was in D.C. He couldn't get a job besides being a bureaucrat in the state employment office in Jacksonville because there was no job available to him that meet his talent and qualifications. So now he's on the cusp. He got to make a decision. Do I follow my calling, which means I leave my wife and infant son at home, or do I stay here and get abused by the system, get abused by the system of segregation to the point that he was already alcoholic, that I'll kill myself because I can't grow and blossom. And so I mention that because that's one of the categories of father. He had to leave, and when he left, I held it against him for abandoning me and my mother till he broke down and cried and said, son, I had to go. It didn't mean that I didn't love you, but God knows I had to go.
Did you give him a pass then, George, when you understood his reasoning? Was it easier for you then to, understand, why this hole was there, why he left the back door uncovered, so to speak?
Well, I had to give him a pass because it touched. You see, this is a part of this whole conversation across the board. That touched my heart, and it was something that I could understand. Now, part of me said, yeah, but when you was coaching my baseball team, I was better than the dude that you picked to start.
Oh, man, that's a whole nother level of resentment.
Well, but see,
he had a chance to make up. You standing
I think many males blanket the hole,
Yeah.
but the hole never really gets truly filled. I feel for years that that hole that was in my heart, that desire for a father figure in my life, I found things and other individuals helped me to blanket it. But you can lay a blanket over a hole and it's covered, but the hole is still there. It's not filled. And that experience that I had with Dr. Glover, for me, it was a snatching the blanket off moment, because I thought I was good. I thought I was good. You know, I had found other ways and other people to help me just blanket and cover the hole. And so I had moved that need and so much pain in the subconscious of my mind. But those words, "I love you," just literally snatched the blanket off, and I'm sitting there in my Nissan 300, and the hole is fully uncovered. Yeah. And I realize I've got this hole. Yeah. And I thank God that he placed Dr. Glover in my life to be someone who can feel that hole. And he did feel, well, he feel, I still feel that there is still some more room in my hole, but you know, I was blessed that God did place him, and he has been a blessing to my life in addressing that hole. But so many men, so many young brothers, younger than us, older than us, they're still living with a giant hole. They're walking around with a giant hole, that need, that want. And the reality is, what about those fathers who they've passed and they never mended that relationship? What about those who never had a father figure? Because it doesn't have to necessarily be your biological father who is the male that enters your life and helps fill that hole. But what about all the millions of individuals that are living, men that are living, walking around, males with this giant hole, and most of them are unconscious of it? But there is a need, and I agree with Means. This is not a want. There's a need. Fundamentally, there's a need in every male for a father figure who gives him a sense of being loved, who gives him validation and approval. And that's not going to go away. Like you and I have said, we found blankets, and we've seen in our community, we've seen in our culture, for many of our young males, a gang, joining a gang has been that blanket. You know,
Big time.
Getting entangled in illegal entrepreneurship. I mean, again, we feel like they're showing us love, but if it's a love that has us entangled in violent and illegal behaviors, what type of love
But you know what you do?
do we have?
In many cases, what happens is you take the best of it. In other words, we created a beautiful system of substituting other relationships and other feelings to fill that hole. But at the same time, there's something that keeps us. Now, all of us have had gang affiliations. All of us have had relationships where we were reinforced by our peers. And a lot of what we were doing was unhealthy and dangerous. But we pulled out of it what we needed to fulfill that hole. In other words, my boy Red Hampton was the only brother I ever knew. But I decided to go to college, and Red Hampton decided to engage in armed robbery. But the relationship that we had between each other filled that hole, regardless to all of it. Last thing, here's the last part of the big three. The last part of the big three for me is that I might have created my own hole that my need is to love me, because I go back over things that I witnessed that cause me to think very, very little of me. Okay? See, one of these categories of bad father-type relationships happened again. When my parents became separated, my mother was looking for a father figure for me, and she's looking for a support system for herself. And the dude was cruel. The dude was mean. The dude was abusive. So I witnessed events that took place between this man and my mother that made me want to kill him, on the one hand. And on the other hand, she begged me not to get involved.
Well, that's a great transition into something else that Means talks about in this chapter. And again, brothers, I encourage you, get this book, Men's Secret War by Patrick Means. Means talks about harmful father styles, and he gives three. He talks about three of them. We're going to touch on all three of them. He talks about the abusive father style, the absent father style, and the controlling father style. And I think most males will be able to relate to one of these styles, have experienced one of these styles or multiple of styles dealing with a father figure or a male model. He says, you know, when he talks about harmful father styles, the first one he talks about is the abusive father. That father who is violent, that father who is abusive, that father who uses you as a punching bag. And so there is another side to this elusive father. Again, we're talking about this elusive father. We wanting this father that gives us love, that gives us affirmation, a sense of safety. And sometimes it's not only that we're dealing with a father that is absent from the house, but we can actually have a father in the house and still be experiencing an elusive father, dealing with an elusive father. You can still have a man in the house, and he's elusive because he's not giving you what you need, the type of love that you need. An abusive father, even though he's in the house, he's elusive.
And if I could say, George, for me and my brother, well, here's what the whole thing did to me. I can only speak to my personal experience. So my real dad, on one hand, I watched him, he was a hustler. When I would see my dad, he drove big, pretty cars, diamond rings. So in the back of my mind, I'm saying, I got to get some of that one day. On the other hand, me and my brother was being raised in a house with a provider, but like you, this dude turned so violent to our mother and beating her down that we too plotted to kill him on many occasions. And it's just the grace of God that spared him.
And us.
And us from lifelong in prison, of course. But what it did for me is it made me, and it took me being grown to understand this, it made me know, and again, it affects everybody differently. I ain't had no hole in my heart. It just made me feel like I ain't want to be like now one of them two dudes. Yeah. I ain't want to be like my real dad, because when both of those men eventually turned to illegal activity, I admired it so much that I turned to it. And I noticed that when I turned to it and I began to become successful in it, it gave them two dudes so much joy. They wanted to be around me every day, it seemed, because I guess that's what I was in their nest. I was doing what they do. And then I noticed one day when I went to prison, I got out of prison, and one day I was struggling a little bit. And my dad said,
Hold up. You can't just go past that. We got to deal with that. Yeah. We got to talk about that. So here it is. We're playing sports. Right. And we were good athletes. Right. It's in our blood. Right. But no validation from daddy at the football game, right? The track meets, right? No validation, no call from daddy in college, right? But when you decide to get involved in illegal entrepreneurship, selling drugs, doing illegal things, now dad wants to validate that.
He validating that.
Dad wants to build a relationship. There's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah, but you validate.
There's something wrong with that picture.
I know, but at the same time, at the very same time, don't look at the it if you look at the substance of it. Now, if we take the activity out of it, take illegality out of it, all of a sudden you're emulating dad. That means dad has somebody who is emulating him, who's adoring him, who's adopting his lifestyle. Right. And dad approves. And then that turns loose, you see. That turns loose dad's affection, because he don't have to feel guilty about himself no more.
Wow. I mean, that's wow. So dad looks at a son having success on the football field, track, in college, but that doesn't excite him to say, that's my boy.
That ain't me.
But he see his son selling drugs, chasing women, making money, and that makes him stick his chest out and say, that's my boy.
And Means talks about in the book, when Means, one of the gentlemen in the chapter, George, says, the young man says, my father was so disappointed that I didn't want to take over the farming business. It's the same thing.
Again, let's go back to because Means says, again, there are 3 types of unhealthy, harmful fathers of style. The abusive father, that's the one who's violent, uses a punching bag. He said the absent father, and that absent can be because of death, divorce, illness, work, or just irresponsible. But then he talks about the controlling father. That's what you just talked about, where I want my son to do this or be that person or pursue this profession, and if he doesn't, I don't give him my approval. I hold back my approval and my validation. I don't affirm him because he does not choose the path that I want him to choose. That's what he talks about in the chapter. The gentleman said, his father wanted him to be a farmer, take over the farm and the ranch and run it like he did, pass it on, but he didn't do that. I know there has to be some men who can relate to this here.
Yes.
Your father has a dream for you. Your father has a path that he wants you to take, a profession that he wants you to engage in. Your father may even be like the story in this chapter. Your father has a business that he's through sweat, blood, and tears, he's invested years to build, and he wants you to take over and run it, but that's his dream, and that's not your dream. And because you do not follow the dream that he has for you, or pursue the profession or want to work in the field that he wants you to work in, he withholds his validation, and he becomes an elusive father.
Wow.
Man. Man. Now y'all see why I say this chapter had me messed up. The whole idea of males dealing with this elusive father is happening on so many levels. It's happening with a father empty, not there in the house. It's taking place with fathers who are physically present in the house. But it's necessary. It's not something that might be good for us. It's something we need. And it leaves a hole in our heart when we don't. I hope this is helping those of you who are fathers, those of us who are fathers, be careful that your dream that you have for your son, you are so dogmatic about it that if your son chooses not to pursue your dream or the profession that you want him to enter into, that you become elusive. I believe we do it. I believe it happens consciously and unconsciously. I don't believe every father desire is to hold back love, is to leave a hole in their son's heart, is to have their son live with pain and a sense of being in a relationship where love, validation, and a sense of belonging is elusive. But the father does not realize he's creating that type of relationship. He's digging that hole and making it deeper and deeper because I wanted you to be a doctor and you decided you wanted to play the saxophone. You wanted to be a musician. I mean, how many stories do we know? Have we heard about this? We've read about this in history. Fathers who've literally taken sons out of the wheel because I wanted you to be and pursue this dream. This is my dream. Be careful. Be careful. And I share this with you. I'm a sports fanatic. I've loved sports. I coach football. I put football on the table for both of my sons. I put every resource that they would need to be successful in sports on the table. I sacrificed. I went without. So whatever they needed, if it was training, if it was camps, whatever it was, I put the best at their disposal. But one son fell in love with Another son, he liked it, but he didn't love football. And what I was careful to do, and I know it was by the guidance of the Holy Spirit, I did not love neither son more or less, because I had my dreams, but I knew that my dreams would not necessarily be the dreams that would become their dreams. One son, he fell in love with football like his father, and he took that route, and God blessed him to play on the highest level. My other son, he liked football, but he didn't love it. But he chose another route, another career, and he's successful, and he's happy. Be careful, fathers. There is so much in this discussion tonight, in this chapter, in this topic. We could talk about it for 3 episodes, but I really want to leave you with that warning. Be careful that you are not an elusive father, behaving as an elusive father. And sit down and be honest with yourself. Give some real thought to it. Is there a hole in your heart that your daddy left that you need to deal with? The reason why you need to deal with it is because if you do not deal with it, there's a chance that you can repeat the cycle. Means don't just give us 3 harmful father styles. He also gives us 3 steps to move towards healthiness. Let me share them with you as we get to the end of our time. He says, seek to reconcile with your father. If you have a broken relationship with your father, a distant relationship with your father, give some thought to reconciliation. Reconciliation, yes, it always involves some forgiveness. But the forgiveness is not for your father. The forgiveness is for your healing. The forgiveness is to make you healthier. The second thing he suggests is to help us move towards healthiness is make deeper friendships with other men. Because the reality is there's some father-son relations that cannot be mended, cannot be reconciled. What if your father is no longer alive? Or your father may be alive, but that relationship just cannot be reconciled or mended for whatever reason. But you can find meaningful relationships with other men that will help fill that hole in your heart. That's what has happened to me. That hole that was in my heart that I realized was a hole that appeared to be and felt like that was as wide as the ocean. God has placed people in my life, other men, other brothers, that has helped give me that validation, that affirmation that I need. And then lastly, he says, let God give you his fatherly blessing. The Bible says, after Jesus was baptized, when he ascended from the waters, a voice from heaven said, this is my beloved Son, who I am well pleased. Know this here, as we finish this episode of Men to Men. If no one else, if no father walking on this earth loves you, there's a heavenly Father that does. I hope you were challenged. I hope you were blessed. I hope you was inspired. I hope this dialogue, this conversation moves some of you to have conversations with your sons, your fathers. And I hope it moves you towards being a better man, a better husband, better father. Thank you, George. Thank you, Maurice, for joining me and being willing to be open, transparent, and have an honest conversation, men to men. I hope you have a champion week, the rest of your week. God bless you. We'll see you again next month in Men to Men.